Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for the Setsubun event. This one's a radical departure from previous events, and it rewards thinking smart over grinding hard. The flip side is that you can lose a lot of time by making dumb but easy mistakes. With that in mind, I'll walk you through the essentials for a smooth Setsubun experience. The primary goal of this event is to climb a tower by completing one-time floor quests. Every 10 floors you get a boss that's harder than the floors that came before it. When you use a servant for a Setsubun quest aside from the challenge quest, they get exhausted and go on cooldown for 4 hours, and you can't use them in Setsubun teams. No undersized parties. You need at least 3 of your own servants, and you don't get to run supports. Thankfully, fatigue only happens when you clear a quest, so don't worry about losing. It's a test of your account's depth, but you can stretch your resources with some moderate planning. The first way is by reducing servant exhaustion. Partway through the event, you'll unlock a hot spring, and old Kantai Collection players may have realized where we're going. It has 5 slots and halves exhaustion duration. If you toss them in right after a quest, you'll cut it down from 4 hours to 2. The second is team building. You need a minimum of 3 servants per floor, but if you overcommit, you'll exhaust your good servants and be stuck with the dregs. For most floors, you want an AoE attacker with either a single target attacker and 1 dead weight servant, or 2 dead weight depending on how ballsy you are. A lot of the floor encounters are 1 round, but some have a second wave, so watch out. The distribution is somewhat random, though I can guarantee that every 9 floor is a 2-waver, and doubles get a lot more frequent towards the end. If you were cooking up a cheeky plan just now, I regret to inform you that you can't bypass exhaustion with duplicate servants. You actually need to think about your teams, and I'd recommend unleveled and niche utility servants as party filler. Ones like Jekyll, Daeon, Amadeus, Matahari, and so on. If your roster is shaky but you have an allergic reaction to the encounter list, you can retreat for 1 AP and without getting exhaustion. My strategy is to keep my strongest servants in reserve for the 10th floor challenges, then putting them in the hot spring so they go off cooldown along with my first wave of standard servants. With a K-scope in the association uniform, you can do the encounters quickly as well. Setsubun has no shop. Instead, you get rewards for clearing floor milestones, and I must say some of these are pretty enticing. Claws, wine, and Magatama? Sounds like a Friday night if you ask me. You also get the event CE from these milestones. I don't know what the official translation is, but we call it Dress for Demons, and it gives a 100% damage bonus to its equipper within Setsubun. The event effect doubles at max limit break, which makes it handy for the challenge quest and final floor bosses. At this point, I'm gonna go over some notable floor encounters, so if you want to keep it a surprise for yourself, skip to the timestamp on screen. Floor 10 is Hokusai. Burn her down quickly in the second bar, or she'll crit you to death. Floor 40 is Benkei with 2 of the Onigashima bosses who have their card type resistances. He gains high defense on break, so prepare someone who can bypass it. Avoid a quick main attacker as he also gains a ridiculous quick resistance. Floor 50 is Ketz, but she buffs everyone on both sides on first break, so you should kill her last. On floor 60 you'll encounter Tamamo, who you should attack last as she has a party buff on break. Floor 80 is a mixed class encounter with Emi as the boss, and he can wipe buffs on break. 90 is Ibaraki Doji with Shutens that respawn until Ibaraki goes down. The Shutens just do an extra attack for their NP. On break, Ibaraki gives all enemies a unit of charge, so prepare accordingly. Floor 100 is Shuten with a ton of health in her first bar. She has a lot less in bar 2, but she gets 4 turns of damage resistance, crab style. If you have her, Xuanzang is a reasonably good choice for phase 1, as she can nuke Shuten and give debuff immunity to your entire frontline. Otherwise, crab her down and consider a stalling backline like Mash and Media Lily, for example. I personally found this to be the second hardest fight in Setsubun after the challenge quest, so go in with a full, powerful party. On 130 you encounter Billy the Kid with a lot of health. Sometimes he gets charged when he's hit, and on first break, he'll debuff your attack when he hits you. Save a big dick lancer for this, cause you're gonna need one. 140 is Babbage who has a permanent chance to dodge, and on first break, he'll NP immediately. If you can field him, Kentucky Rider with Origin Bullet will rip him apart. 160 is Ruler Martha, and she taunts one of your servants, forcing you to babysit them the entire time. Floor 190 is Raiko with bonus Shuten mobs, much like the Ibaraki fight. The difference is that there's a fixed number of Shutens, and Raiko will actively kill them to heal herself. You might be tempted to let her do your dirty work, but keep in mind that Raiko hits like a wrecking ball, and leaving her alone on the field will almost certainly result in a full party wipe. On break, she can dispel 1 buff on each attack, which is very annoying, so try to burst her down first to limit the damage she can do. Fighting a bunch of beefy Shutens is annoying, but at least you'll have a team to do it with. Floor 200 has the final encounter, Kintoki who has permanent invuln pierce. At the start he gets a debuff that reduces his attack by 5% every turn until he hits 50%. On first break he purges his own buffs, and on second break he reveals a massive 750k health bar and cleanses his existing debuffs before getting a permanent defense down. Uriel dumpsters him, so keep her, Orion, or maybe both for this particular fight. There's also a challenge quest that unlocks halfway through the event. You fight a 3-bar Tomoe with 2 beefy archer enemies. She starts by gutting your entire team's crit damage permanently and stunning a single servant. The adds in this fight are pretty damn annoying for a couple reasons. Firstly, if both are dead, she can summon the 97k, which summons the 50k, which can give the other two a tick of charge. Supposedly, the 50k archer can revive the 97k archer, but I didn't see that in my footage, so take that with a grain of salt. Also, the 97k archer can give a debuff that includes taunt and a single instance of buff block. On death, this enemy gives an NP damage buff to Tomoe. The second annoyance is that Tomoe can taunt one of the archers, so you really want a strong AoE Lancer to sweep the field and make progress against her. The good news is that supports are allowed for this fight, and Exhaustion isn't a factor in team building, so you can go all out. If you can find a good one, I recommend Karna, as he fits the bill and he can lock Tomoe out of her NP. Tomoe gets crit chance and damage on first break, and on second break, she gets a 5-hit evasion buff, which is removable. My strat was to stun and burn her down through phase 2. Then in phase 3, I swapped in Media to purge her evasion and crit buffs, giving me an opening to finish her off. Keep in mind that her crits fucking hurt, so if you want to win, you'll have to find some way of suppressing her damage. Finally, the extra enemies need to die for the battle to end, so try and save a little bit of fuel for that. Setsubun is one of my favorite events because progress is done in a concentrated flurry of activity instead of granular farming. It's a different sort of FGO experience, and I highly recommend jumping into it. Because progress is restricted by the exhaustion mechanic, be sure to start early because it's not the sort of event you can do last minute. The worse your account is, the earlier you need to start. The good news is that exhaustion only applies to Setsubun, and the event barely uses any AP, so you can still do normal account shit outside of it. If you're desperately underpowered, use the Training Grounds event to power up your roster. It overlaps for the first few days of Setsubun. That's all I've got. Thanks for watching. Like if you liked the video, subscribe for more, and come watch me stream on Twitch. I'll be rolling for 3 NP5 servants on day 1, so stop by on Monday at 3 PM Pacific time. It's gonna be a real fucking mess. Alright, see you there.